WrestleMania 35 is almost here. I'll be watching it live on Sunday. And I thought we'd talk about each and every WrestleMania. This is going to be fun. Welcome to my live stream. First one of April, maybe only one of April. For 12 consecutive months now, I've been live. This is my 10th consecutive year on YouTube. I did a wee video marking that occasion yesterday. Feel free to check it out. But this is not going to be a traditional same old PMDB live stream. I do have a topic, and it is WrestleMania. Might as well dive straight into it. WrestleMania 1 took place in 1985. I was not even alive yet. WrestleMania 1, by default, is probably the WrestleMania I've watched the most. Doing the WrestleMania marathons, always got to start with a start, haven't you? And all those failed WrestleMania marathons. Is WrestleMania 1 a must-see show for the casual wrestling fan? No. But it's obviously one of the most important WrestleManias of all time still. The main event, Hulk Hogan and Mr. T versus Piper and Orndorff. It's a very iconic main event still. But watching it, it is quite a messy affair. Mr. T could not wrestle, but Piper, for me, at this WrestleMania and this main event, steals the show. WrestleMania 2 is a disaster. It really is. It might have looked good on paper, holding it at 3 different locations, but it was a bit of a mess throughout. The 2 matches I enjoyed the most at WrestleMania 2 were the tag team matches. I loved the work Terry Funk put in his tag team match, teaming up with Hoss Funk to take on a team of the Junkyard Dog and Tio Santana. It was a solid tag team wrestling match. I really always enjoyed watching the British Bulldogs wrestle, specifically Dynamite Kid. They had a solid tag team championship match against Greg Valentine and whom will be inducted into this year's Hall of Fame, Bruce the Barber Beefcake. Yay! I'm not the biggest Beefcake fan, but even he was pretty impressive in this tag team affair. WrestleMania 3 took place 1987, the year legends were born. Me. I was born on the first annual Survivor Series that year. Must have been fate that I would become a fake fight fan. WrestleMania 3 really blows away WrestleMania 2 and 1. It's just such on a grander scale, and it still holds up. It's home to the most iconic and biggest WrestleMania main event still of all time, Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant, and also includes one of the greatest WrestleMania matches of all time. A match that was arguably ahead of its time, Steamboat versus Savage, still gets talked about today. WrestleMania 4, from the Trump Plaza. I really dread rewatching this one when I'm doing my WrestleMania marathons, which I'll probably never do again. It's kind of strange. Now, the golden age of wrestling, the Hulkamania era, in my opinion, had the best characters. Like almost everyone on the roster was had such charisma. You know, he had guys that could do it all, like Jake the Snake Roberts. He had great workers like Bret Hart. the Golden Age really had just about everything I fell in love with about wrestling. Anyways, but WrestleMania 4 and some of the Golden Age WrestleManias are kind of tough to rewatch. And WrestleMania 4 is hard work, and the whole tournament thing was a fail. However, it was the debut not only of the Ultimate Warrior, his WrestleMania debut, but it was the debut of my favorite tag team of all time, Demolition Axe and Demolition Smash. Why they're not in the Hall of Fame? They're the greatest tag team of all time. Get them in the Hall of Fame. Get Sid in the Hall of Fame. Get the British Bulldog, Owen Hart in the Hall of Fame. Okay, I'm going in a bit of a rant here. Anyways, WrestleMania 5 wasn't much better. From 1989. I just feel like with all the cast of characters the Golden Age of Wrestling had, there's some kind of dud WrestleManias during the time, I will admit. The main event match between Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage had a fantastic build-up, one of the greatest wrestling storylines of all time. But their matches, for some reason, they were kind of, I'm going to do a Dave Meltzer on you all, they were kind of 3 stars out of 5 at best in ring wise. I was always kind of disappointed whenever I watched a Hogan Savage match. I didn't think their one-on-one matches that I've seen, anyways, they were good, but they weren't great. WrestleMania 6 is a one-match show, and when I first got into wrestling, it was the Golden Age videotapes that I first watched, and I loved Hulk Hogan. I loved the Ultimate Warrior, so this was a fun. I loved watching this match, this event as a kid. I also loved Andre the Giant's face turn moment. I thought it was a great send off. This was Andre the Giant's last WrestleMania match. I thought it was a great send off for him. But Hulk Hogan versus the Ultimate Warrior, some fans today will kind of maybe look down at it and not get why some of the old school wrestling fans loved it at the time. To me, it was like 2 larger than life cartoon characters coming to life, battling. It was Mickey Mouse versus Donald Duck, the 2 most popular wrestlers at the time. And I think the match delivered. And it was a great WrestleMania moment, seeing the Warrior defeat the immortal Hulk Hogan. Like kind of a passing of the torch moment too. WrestleMania 7. It's kind of a one. It's overall is better than WrestleMania 6. Although I think WrestleMania 6 feels much grander than this show. This show feels more like a SummerSlam. I didn't like the main event at all between Slaughter and Hogan. It just didn't do anything for me. But the match that steals the show and is one of the greatest WrestleMania matches of all time, and one of the greatest WrestleMania moments afterwards, when the Macho King Randy Savage reunites with Miss Elizabeth, fans in the crowd crying. His match with the Warrior, the retirement match, was really, really well done. WrestleMania 8. Now, I got into wrestling in 1991 just in time for the steroid scandal. The golden age of wrestling was coming to an end. Hulk Hogan was still the biggest name. And it was the golden age tapes, like I mentioned, that got me into wrestling. And WrestleMania 8 was the first WrestleMania I watched the year of 1992. I was 4 years old, and I watched WrestleMania 8 the day after, or a couple of nights after. I was on Sky Movies Plus here in the UK. I remember watching it and thinking, where's the Ultimate Warrior? I'd watched the Royal Rumble 1992, the greatest Royal Rumble of all time, prior to this, and I remember enjoying it, but disappointed the Ultimate Warrior was on it because I was just a kid, very young kid at the time. I didn't realize he had been fired at SummerSlam several months before. And one of the highlights of watching wrestling as a kid was seeing the shock turn of the Ultimate Warrior at the end of WrestleMania 8. And to me, that's one of the most genuine and one of the biggest WrestleMania moments of all time. And it also features two of the greatest WrestleMania matches of all time, Brett v. Piper, which I believe over-delivered. I don't think people thought that that match was going to be so good, and it was really, really good. And Flair and Savage was so much fun. Everything about it, the promos at the start, the match, the chaos involved in it, and all the aftermath. Two solid promos as well. It was just a very fun affair, and I think WrestleMania 8 is underrated. I think it's one of the better ones. 2 seconds. I was going to do this non-live, but it would take far too long to upload. So I thought, I'll just go live. And we'll see what happens. WrestleMania 9. WrestleMania 9. When I was rewatching it last year, I was doing that whole Brock Lesnar, am I going to tap? Will Brock tap out thing? I was really wanting to tap out and switch it off. WrestleMania 9. The very worst 3-hour WrestleMania of all time. WrestleMania 10. Is one I missed. WrestleMania 10 and WrestleMania 2000 are the only 2 WrestleMania since becoming a fan that I've missed. I got my dates wrong when I was a kid and missed WrestleMania 10. Remember hearing how great the ladder match with Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon was, and being good that I missed it. Also being very good, Shawn Michaels lost. I was a huge Shawn Michaels mark. I wanted to look like Shawn Michaels, be like Shawn Michaels when I was younger. He was my favorite up until the arrival of Stone Cold Steve Austin. Shawn Michaels was my guy. Anyways, it featured 2. I'm going to do a Dave Meltzer on y'all again. 2 5-star matches. That ladder match I mentioned, and Bret v. Owen. Although I will say, I do think Bret Hart versus Owen Hart's SummerSlam 94 match in the cage was better than their WrestleMania match. But WrestleMania 10 overall was a very, very solid show. The only problems I have with WrestleMania 10, I think the main event of WrestleMania 10 was underwhelming. As much as Bret Hart was great and he could pull out great matches with just about anybody, I don't think the matches he had with Yokozuna at WrestleMania anyways were great. Oh, WrestleMania 11, Lawrence Taylor versus Bam Bam Bigelow in the main event. Gives me a headache still. It's more watchable than WrestleMania 9, but definitely one of the worst still. Let's move on. WrestleMania 12, I've got fond memories of. I remember watching that the next day after it aired on Sky Sports 1 probably at the time. Shawn Michaels versus Bret Hart. Watching it for the first time, what an amazing match. One of the best matches on first viewing. On repeat viewing over the years, it's kind of an endurance test. Hello, Steve. How you doing? Hello. Well, hello there indeed. But I remember being such a Shawn Michaels mark, and I was so glad when he won. I love Shawn and Bret both, but I remember being really chuffed as a kid watching Shawn Michaels become champion. WrestleMania 13. Stone Cold Steve Austin, he stole the show, didn't he? It's one of the most iconic scenes of him in the sharpshooter passing out, covered in blood. in one of the greatest wrestling matches of all time, Bret Hart and Steve Austin. But unfortunately for WrestleMania 13, that was really the only good/great point of the show. I'm doing pretty well, Steve. How are you? Um, I'm discussing each and every WrestleMania, Steve. So it won't be. I'll reply as much as I can to people that pop in, but forgive me if I miss a few messages, as I'm going to be talking about each and every WrestleMania. WrestleMania 14, I feel is such a fun show. The Attitude Era, for some reason, gets looked down upon by some of today's fans, but I don't know why. In the Attitude Era, Raw was getting watched 8 million times. How much times does it get watched these days? 2 million? Yeah, it's so much better today. WrestleMania 14, fantastic moment with Austin becoming champion. He was the man in 1998, without a doubt. The Austin McMahon feud was must-see TV. I also loved the build-up between The Undertaker and Kane. The match maybe wasn't so good, but the build-up and the entrances and Pete Rose getting Tombstone was all good. Was all good. Steve says, that's okay. I will wrestle you. Maybe it'll be me and Steve at WrestleMania 36, eh? And Steve says, what a glorious day that will be. Hello, dear. Hey, Sana Designs, how you doing? Hope you are both doing well. WrestleMania 15, I will say, even though I love the golden age of wrestling, I love the Attitude Era, but it did both feature kind of dud WrestleMania sometime. And WrestleMania 15 is one of those kind of, the whole boss man thing, just poor taste. The Rock versus Stone Cold Steve Austin 1 was very fun, but it was far from their best matchup. WrestleMania 2000 was the last WrestleMania today I actually missed. I was on holiday at the time in Orlando, Florida. I had watched the pre-show, or Sunday Night Heat as it was known at the time, and I was wanting to watch WrestleMania 2000, but the hotel couldn't get on, or I don't know. I was 12. I was really upset. I was such a big wrestling mark at the time. Anyways, WrestleMania 2000, I've watched since. I really enjoy the ladder match from WrestleMania 2000. The hardcore battle royal thingy was a lot of fun. The main event has got its good spots, but I think it drags on a little bit. And I remember messaging my friend at the time of who won the WrestleMania main event, and he's like, Triple H won. What? Triple H? So it was a genuine shock moment to see a bad guy, a heel, win the main event. I felt for sure The Rock was going to do it. Mankind, who Steve mentions, was in this main event as Mick Foley. It was his retirement match. I don't know who's had the most retirement matches, Hulk Hogan or Mick Foley. It's really, they've had a lot of retirement matches. Raw WrestleMania 17. Oh, what can I say that hasn't already been said about the greatest wrestling pay-per-view of all time? It had everything you could want for and more for a wrestling show. Featured the greatest main event, greatest. I don't care how many stars Dave Meltzer gives these New Japan matches or some of today's wrestling matches. He gives out 7 stars, 6 stars. Stone Cold Steve Austin versus The Rock at WrestleMania 17 is the greatest professional wrestling match, the greatest main event of all time, bar none. I don't care what anybody says. Those two are the Hogan, Rock, and Austin are the 3 legit biggest stars of the WrestleMania years. There's them three, and there's everybody else, and The reason why the Attitude Era was so special that we had not one but two of the biggest stars of all time on weekly television, and this was their greatest match together. Oh me, makes me this type of match makes me proud, makes me realize that I didn't waste my time watching wrestling over the years, because this match, very entertaining, very good match. Steve says, last time watched a WrestleMania, all of the wrestlers have spent most of their time slumped on the ropes. Or that must. It's there's no psychology there, is there, Steve? You've got to suspend your disbelief for wrestling, and when they do stuff like that, they really do that a lot in today's Royal Rumbles, and I think it's really lazy. WrestleMania 18 had Hulk Hogan versus The Rock. The Rock, arguably the biggest wrestling star of all time now, against Hulk Hogan. This was genuinely two generations clashing together. And I remember really rooting. I did not like. I was a Stone Cold guy. I did not like The Rock at the time, even though I knew he was very entertaining and a very good wrestler. Um, so I was really rooting for. Like I say, I've said this in previous videos. Hulk Hogan got me into wrestling. Stone Cold Steve Austin kept me a fan. Loved both. But I was really rooting for Hulk Hogan in this match, and this was a genuine icon versus icon of wrestling. Um, some people say they missed the boat. Maybe it should have been Hulk Hogan versus Steve Austin. I'm not sure if that is much as I would have wanted to see that matchup too. I don't think it would have worked as well as Hogan. Hogan and Rock just seem to fit better. And then WWE ruined WrestleMania 18 with having Triple H versus Chris Jericho as the last match. What? Steve says, can't beat it. Oh, you really can't, Steve. I used to love WCW before the WWE bought everything. Yeah, that was the beginning and the end for wrestling when WWE bought WCW, which was going out of business, to be fair. But that was the beginning and the end of wrestling. It's sort of been hanging on since. It's never been mainstream again since then. WrestleMania 19, a lot of fans call it one of the greatest of all time. It's hard to argue. Hogan versus Vince McMahon was a lot of fun. I enjoyed the surprise appearance of Roddy Piper. Steve Austin's last match. He's one of the wrestlers that's actually stayed retired. The Rock finally beat Austin at WrestleMania, and Austin's actually stayed retired since then. And The Rock went on to Hollywood. Brock Lesnar versus Kurt Angle. Even though I preferred their SmackDown Iron Man match, this was still a very solid wrestling match. But the match I enjoyed the most from WrestleMania 19 was Chris Jericho versus Shawn Michaels. I thought that was a really good match. And I loved the bit at the end too. Chris Jericho is a fantastic bad guy, fantastic heel. Steve says, I used to stay up all night with my granddad to watch the WCW Goldberg main event. LOL all night for him just to spear the opponent and pin him within 30 seconds. Yeah. WCW really handled Bill Goldberg right. They really made him out to be such a machine. And see, I like when there's short marches too. I don't think every wrestling match should be go on for like 10, 15 minutes all the time. I think we need those short matches too. And Goldberg, he got inducted into the Hall of Fame in the last few years, and I think he definitely deserves to be there. Speaking of Goldberg, he did, however, participate in one of the worst WrestleMania matches of all time, WrestleMania 20 from 2004. Brock Lesnar Goldberg was notoriously awful, and it is one of the worst matches ever. And I like Goldberg, and I love Brock Lesnar, but that WrestleMania 20 match, I remember at the time watching it with my friend, And he was like, "This match sucks," and it did. Uh, WrestleMania 20 obviously tainted these days with what allegedly happened with Chris Benoit. Um, it's hard to watch Chris Benoit matches these days for what allegedly happened. No one really knows for sure. I don't think we'll ever find out what actually happened, but it is hard to watch back, especially WrestleMania 20, knowing what happened or what we think knew what happened. WrestleMania now, by the time of WrestleMania 21, my wrestling days started to dwindle a wee bit thanks to John Cena. I was never a John Cena fan. He put me off watching wrestling, but however, WWE still could produce some great WrestleMania moments, some WrestleMania matches, and one of those great WrestleMania matches was Kurt Angle versus Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 21. That was one of those matches that made me proud to be a wrestling fan. After that match, WrestleMania 21 falls off a cliff, but that match, and I really enjoyed the Money in the Bank ladder match from that year's WrestleMania 2. Steve says, "You would struggle to last 30 seconds in the ring." Oh. I love you, Steve. I love you. WrestleMania 22. For me, a lot of people would say Edge versus Mick Foley was the match tonight, but for me, Shawn Michaels once again stole this show, and he did it with Vince McMahon, who can't wrestle. A great character, Vince McMahon, but Shawn Michaels managed to me, was the match of the night. And the call by Jim Ross Jr. was fantastic during that match. Really was really good. I'm trying not to laugh at Steve here. WrestleMania 23, I might as well put the hat on. It featured the Trumpster, the greatest president of all time. And when you think of WrestleMania 23, you think of Donald J. Trump shaving Vince McMahon's head bald. And then Donald J. Trump taking the worst WrestleMania stunner of all time. It was horrendous. WrestleMania 24, my sky played up. I was furious. 2008. I made up for it the year later, actually attending a WrestleMania, which is the thumbnail for this video. That's me at WrestleMania 25. WrestleMania 24, to me, is very overrated. I enjoyed seeing John Cena get beat. I didn't really care much for the whole Money Mayweather Big Show affair. But the match of the night for me was Ric Flair, who was way past his prime by this time, against Shawn Michaels, who was he was a bit, getting near past his prime too. But anyways, it was a decent match. It was fans were crying, and I would never cry for a fake fight, but there was fans in attendance crying at the end of this match. It got a little bit too soppy for my liking, I will say. But if Ric Flair had stayed retired, that would have been a fitting ending to the career of Ric Flair. No problem, no problem at all, Steve. This is not really a traditional PMDB live stream where I've got no theme, but feel free to lurk, and I will be interacting as much as I can with those who come into the stream. WrestleMania 25 I attended. There is video of me shouting like a maniac on here for Stone Cold Steve Austin. It was one of the worst WrestleManias of all time. I attended one of the worst WrestleManias of all time. However, WrestleMania 25 did have Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker. In my opinion, was their best match at WrestleMania. I think it was much better than the WrestleMania 26 rematch. And I've said this before in previous videos. During the match, I sort of turned around to the crowd. I'm like, "We are spoiled. We are spoiled." That was like, it tore the house down. And after that match, the crowd was dead. Like, the crowd put all their emotion and passion into that match, and it was just an incredible match. And I remember the talk after WrestleMania between the fans was, I can't wait to watch this match again on TV to hear Jim Ross's commentary, because we just knew he would love it. And he was like, "Oh, I think I'm having an out of body experience watching that." It's true. It was a fantastic match between two legends, and they were total legends by this time. Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker. Anyways, WrestleMania 26, the first WrestleMania of the 2010s. I was going to attend this WrestleMania too, but couldn't quite make it back to America. I did eventually go back to America last year, but it wasn't for WrestleMania. Um, so I watched WrestleMania 26 at my uncle's house, and I cringe at the thought of Bret Hart coming back for that match. That match in brackets with Vince McMahon. That was horrible. And like I said when talking about WrestleMania 25, I don't think Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker was as good. I felt a lot of the spots were a bit more forced, and it was still very, a solid match, but I didn't think it was at the level of the WrestleMania 25 match. WrestleMania 27 was the first WrestleMania I watched with people. Yeah, and I was embarrassed to be a wrestling fan that day. I was because the people I was watching with were very casual wrestling fans, and by the time, I mean, when we were watching the John Cena versus the Miz main event, they were like, "Is this how bad wrestling's going? This is the main event." Now, Undertaker versus Triple H was solid. That was a good match, and it was always a joy seeing the Undertaker win at WrestleMania. But WrestleMania 27 was pretty bad overall. Then we go on to WrestleMania 28, where it featured the once in a lifetime match between John Cena and The Rock, which was, I'm not a John Cena fan, but it was pretty fun to see this match. They spoiled it the year after when they did it again, and it was a horrendous matchup. Uh, but the match that steals the show at this WrestleMania was the Hell in a Cell match between The Undertaker and Triple H, refereed by Shawn Michaels, whom, in my opinion, elevated the match even more. He was really good in the referee role. And The Undertaker was 19-0 in storyline at this WrestleMania. And I remember Shawn Michaels gave him the sweet chin music, and he turned in, and I thought, oh, God, no, not Triple H is going to end the streak. I couldn't think of anything worse than Triple H ending the streak other than John Cena doing it. I was us old school wrestling fans always had this nightmare vision that one day John Cena is going to be the guy to end the streak if the streak did end. And Undertaker walked into a pedigree, and I was like, oh, I didn't want it. I wanted the Undertaker to go 20, and the Undertaker kicked us. There is a wrestling god after all, and Undertaker went 20-0. Right outcome, great solid match. And then we go into WrestleMania 29 rather, from 2013. It's up there with WrestleMania 9 and WrestleMania 11, one of the worst WrestleManias of all time. Dreadful. But did anything good happen apart from CM Punk versus The Undertaker? That was a pretty solid match. It looks really great compared to the other matches that happened at WrestleMania 29. Triple H going over Brock Lesnar. It was his first WrestleMania match back since UFC, where he won legit fights. He became the UFC champion. He hadn't been at WrestleMania in years. And Triple H puts himself, what? Oh. And The Rock versus John Cena, their second match sucked. Anyways, we move on to WrestleMania 30, a major improvement. 5 years ago now, can you believe? Now, there's three moments that stand out for me at this WrestleMania. Is the moment at the start, fantastic opening. We've got the face down we always wanted between Hogan and Stone Cold Steve Austin, and The Rock got involved too. Fantastic little segment with the legit three biggest stars You had Hulk Hogan, the biggest star of the Golden Age, and the two biggest stars of the Attitude Era, The Rock and Stone Cold. It was a beautiful sight. So that was probably the best opening ever to a WrestleMania. At the end, we had Daniel Bryan getting his moment, and that was a fan favorite moment. And then the Undertaker lost, and I thought the referee had made a mistake. I was like, um, because for non-wrestling fans, the Undertaker had been undefeated since WrestleMania 7 at WrestleMania. He had defeated everybody. When I was watching, I thought, oh, the referee's going to get fired. He's counted to three. The Undertaker's failed to kick out. What's going on here? Because there's no music being played. This is awkward. And then Paul Heyman jumped in, and he's like, "Oh my God, you did it, Brock! You did it!" And I was like, "Oh, they're going to restart the match. This is obviously not supposed to happen, and nothing to see here." And then I felt like my inner child had died inside me when I seen 21 and 1. I was like, "Oh my God, it did it!" Actually went through with it. Now, there's a lot of debate whether the Undertaker should have lost or not. But if there was a credible guy to end the Undertaker's streak, who better than a legit badass like Brock Lesnar? Brock Lesnar is one of my favorites. I think Brock Lesnar's very underrated, actually, in regards to wrestling. And if there was somebody that was going to end the Undertaker's winning streak, it was Brock Lesnar. WrestleMania 31. Now, to me, overall, WrestleMania 31, with its fun moments throughout, and some solid wrestling throughout, and a damn good main event. And I'm by no means a Roman Reigns fan. He's another guy like John Cena that drew me away from wrestling. But Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns put on a fantastic main event match, and Seth Rollins got involved with his Money in the Bank, and it was a feel good WrestleMania. There was not a lot of problems with it, apart from Triple H putting himself over once again. Triple H does what Triple H does. Anyways, well, apparently Triple H actually has lost the most times at WrestleMania. I did watch a WWE YouTube video, and Triple H statistically has lost the most times, which is great because he's not that damn good. Anyways, WrestleMania 31, I thought was in my opinion, overall is the best WrestleMania of the 2010s. WrestleMania 32, oh God, I get a headache just thinking about WrestleMania 32. What a long show. It was the first WrestleMania where I thought, this is going on too long. Like, as much as I love wrestling sometimes, no show should be this long. And that's the problem with these WrestleManias. They're far too, 7 hours overall if you watch the pre-show. I don't watch the pre-show. But if you're going to, it's like 7 hours long or nearly 8 hours. How ridiculous. It should never be that long. And WrestleMania 32 is a really bad show. The highlight of the show was seeing out of his prime Steve Austin give people stunners. I mean, what else happened? Shane McMahon threw himself off the Hell in a Cell, and what looked a very kind of, there was clearly a mattress underneath the table, or it didn't look as good as when Mick Foley did it. I'm sorry, Shane. It just didn't look as good. It looked very choreographed. It didn't look, it just looked a bit rubbish, to be honest. Triple H, I was watching WrestleMania 32 with my younger cousin, who's like a mini me, and we both fell asleep during this match, the main event match. That's how bad the main event match was. Roman Reigns versus Triple H was horrendous, and just a stinker of a match. WrestleMania 33, it had its moments. It improved on WrestleMania 32. Couldn't get much worse. And I thought the Bill Goldberg Brock Lesnar match, brief but a lot of fun. And then Roman Reigns defeated The Undertaker in the main event, and that was almost the straw that broke the camel's back for me in regards to wrestling. I just thought Roman Reigns was being shoved down our throats far too much, even worse than John Cena. And there's him they're putting him over a legend like The Undertaker. I mean, and now The Undertaker's lost twice at WrestleMania. They've kind of ruined The Undertaker's. If Undertaker was going to lose, it should have just been the once. That should have been it. It was a good, shocking moment. And he kind of wanted to see what the fans would have been like when The Undertaker finally lost. But I think they've kind of two losses now. Are you? Oh, anyways. WrestleMania 34. Now, last year I reviewed and rewatched every WrestleMania. I enjoyed, from what I can remember, I enjoyed WrestleMania 34. I was dreading going into WrestleMania 34 because Roman Reigns was still being shoved down our throat, and I wasn't looking forward to Roman Reigns being put over Brock Lesnar. Then Brock Lesnar won. I thought, oh, what's going on here? That was it was a great match. I will admit, it was far from a great match, but I was just like, I thought it was a good twist, Brock Lesnar, because no one's seen that coming. Brock Lesnar leaving the Universal Champion. But Ronda Rousey, for me, at this WrestleMania, stole the show. And she teamed up with Kurt Angle and against Triple H and Stephanie McMahon. And it was a damn good performance. Her first match on TV, and it was excellent. And, I mentioned at the start of this video, I think today's wrestling climate is the worst it's ever been. I think WWE overall is horrible. However, when times I have watched wrestling in the last year or so, when Ronda Rousey's been on, Gamer One UK is in here. He says, "I remember. Oh yes, I was talking about that match earlier on, and that's one of my favorites from my childhood. The Ultimate Warrior versus Hulk Hogan. Can you believe that match? Showing my age too, was 29 years ago, April 1st, 1990, from the Sky Dome. Oh God, I feel so old too. But the few times I have watched wrestling in the last year, WWE programming, I watched the Survivor Series last year, and I thought Ronda Rousey. Anytime I've watched her or watched wrestling, she's been the MVP of the show. She has been the I was watching the Survivor Series. I thought her performance against Charlotte was excellent, and I really get baffled sometimes with the way some of the fans are, and they sometimes boo people like Ronda Rousey. I don't know why, 'cause she's just the best one on the roster. She's just took to wrestling like a duck to water, and she's got that Brock Lesnar. Oh, she's a legit badass too. She's got that going for her too. And I did watch the segment from Raw last night, which featured Ronda Rousey and Charlotte and Becky Lynch all getting arrested, and there was a scene in that segment where Ronda Rousey and Becky Lynch end up both back in the police car together, and then they both look at each other, and Ronda Rousey starts kicking into it. It was pretty funny. It looked a bit fake, but pretty funny. And there's a bit where Ronda Rousey sticks her head out, and she gets such a stiff knee from Charlotte. I'm like, oh my God. I wouldn't like to be. I looked a bit too real. I don't not. I wouldn't be doing that to Ronda Rousey if I were Charlotte. But anyway, I thought that segment looked really, really good. So, despite WWE being so bad, and it has been really bad for the most part in the last couple of years, it just shows you sometimes they can produce good stuff. And perhaps WrestleMania 35 this week will be a solid WrestleMania. We shall see. Gamer One UK says that's a long time ago, 29 years. I really, she is my favorite woman. I like Ronda Rousey's married, so she's gone. But I fancy Ronda Rousey, and I really really like Alexa Bliss. Not sure if you know her. Um, she's going to be the host of WrestleMania this year, and she's Bliss, just like her name, I think. But the main event this year has been announced that it's going to be the women are going to main event for the first time ever. It's going to be the women main event WrestleMania. I've got absolutely no problems with this because, in my eyes, as a casual wrestling fan now, this is the match that's drawn me in. I want to see this match. I want to see what happens. And none of the other matches are drawing me in. I loved Brock Lesnar, but I could not give you know what about his match with Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins is not that great, and I think he's terrible on the mic. He comes across as really annoying, and I don't know what more they can do with Brock Lesnar personally. Um, so the match that's drawn me in the most is this women's triple threat match for both the titles, and I think it will be probably steal the show. Ronda Rousey stole the show last year. I think her, Becky, and Charlotte are going to steal the show this year. And I don't care what someone's background is, what their sex is, race, religion. Lana's beautiful too. Can't argue there. Stacy Keibler thinks, you remember her? She's my favorite of all time in regards to women in wrestling. Um, you know, I'm a firm believer. The people, regardless of any of the labels, it should be the performers whom have the most talent that are main eventing WrestleMania. That's all it should come down to. Anyways, that's my thoughts. I think I mentioned every WrestleMania. I'll watch this back to see if I did. I might have missed one. I apologize. That's my memories of WrestleMania. Been a fan since 991. I got into it just in time for the steroid scandal. I tarnished it a bit for a few years and grew up with the likes of Austin and The Rock. I attended a WrestleMania 10 years ago now. That's the thumbnail picture. Me with I had really quite short hair back then. 21. Oh, God, I'm feeling old. I never did go back to WrestleMania. Would I go to WrestleMania again? I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'd travel across the pond to go and watch fake fights again. I'm not sure if I'm that keen these days. But I mean, when WrestleMania season comes around, the inner wrestling fan in me does it, Oh yes, I was mentioning that earlier on about the moment at WrestleMania 23 in Detroit when Donald Trump shaved Vince McMahon's head. That was fun. Now, usually hair versus hair matches in wrestling are kind of cringe. I just felt uncomfortable that time Molly Holly got her head shaved, and I always felt those type of matches were kind of cringy. But when Vince McMahon was getting his head shaved, you couldn't help but laugh. Vince McMahon was just whatever he did. Sometimes just so funny and so over the top his acting and stuff. And Donald Trump looked legit like he was having a great time there, and that was fun. I enjoyed that. Um, so yeah, that's my opinion. That's my memories on every single WrestleMania. Uh, so yeah, we see what's in store for us this year. I'm not sure if I'll be live again. This is my 12th month in a row of being live, so I've done it every month now in the last year. I think the next set of videos will be all non-live, but we shall see. Never say never. Never say never. I'm going to go now. But I appreciate Steve and Gamer1 UK joining me for this early morning video. Back in the day, I used to have a crush on the Hardy Boys. Oh yeah, Lita. She was hot too. We've got similar taste, Gamer1 UK. Good old Lita and Trish Stratus. Right. Hope you enjoyed this video for the few PMDB fans out there and the few ones that are a fan of me, that are a fan of wrestling. I hope you enjoy this. And I'll be back again soon with my 1427th video sometime soon. Right, take care all. God bless. Enjoy WrestleMania 35. Hope it's good.